This is the Water Quality Association podcast. How is WQA trying to track and help members understand the impact of tariffs?
It's a constantly revolving issue. So we're constantly updating. We have a lot of graphics and updates that we are putting every month in our newsletter. So that's where we're putting primarily most of our guidance and updates on that process.
That's WQA Government Affairs Manager Paige O'Malley giving us a government affairs update ranging from the Healthy H2O Act to legislative and regulatory developments at the federal and state level. And welcome to the podcast from the Water Quality Association, the leading voice of the residential, commercial, and industrial water treatment community. I'm Wes Lee. Be sure to give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the podcast so you never miss a show. We also feature our podcasts on YouTube. In this episode, we're joined by Paige O'Malley, the Government Affairs Manager at the Water Quality Association. We look at what might be a new option for passage of the Healthy H2O Act. We look back at the recent WQA congressional fly-in in Washington. And on the state level, we span the country for updates on specialty licenses for water treatment professionals, private well testing initiatives, and how WQA is helping the fight against threats of water softener bans. Plus, we'll have our WQA tip. It's all coming up on the Water Quality Association podcast. We're getting a government affairs update in this episode of the WQA podcast, and we're joined by Paige O'Malley, the government affairs manager for WQA. Paige, welcome. We're glad you're here. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
You've joined WQA within the past year. An interesting fact for those listening, Paige used to play college softball. And what was your position?
I was a third baseman and shortstop.
Amazing. That's a very talented, heavy sport. You've got to know what you're doing. You got to have the agility and everything like that. And so you transfer those skills to government affairs.
Definitely the work ethic, I will say.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on moving into WQA's government affairs department. And we wanted to catch you for a few minutes to talk about things going on from the government affairs, legislative affairs, regulatory affairs, and just being, kind of that voice in both Washington as well as the state. And I know we're going to focus a little bit more on state issues this time around, but I wanted to catch you just in general on the issue of top priorities right now for the Water Quality Association, both at federal and state levels.
Yeah, so federally, as most of our members know now, Healthy H2O is our big push. And that's, we can talk more about that later, had its own hiccups with the switch administration and things, but very much still at the top of our priorities federally. And then at the state level, this year we've talked a bit about Washington State, switching coasts in Washington's, and some of the licensing issues we've been fighting out there for our members. And then, of course, a lot of our members know about the Maine water softener ban that we worked through, and some of the other water softener restrictions in states like Tennessee. And then general water quality initiatives like Filter First initiatives throughout the country.
Let's go back to Washington for just a moment. Healthy H2O and the changes going on with the transition to the new administration. And so much is going on. I mean, it's just, kind of a whirlwind of activity. What can you tell us on about Healthy H2O?
So we are waiting for a reintroduction. Our patrons are wonderful. I know some members of our staff and our consultants have had a lot of conversations with them. They're still happy to carry the bill and work through some of the challenges that we've been seeing. As many of you may know, the Farm Bill has its own hiccups that are slowing it down, delays. So we've been working through possibly separating our bill from the Farm Bill and working through that independently, and working with our patrons to make sure they're willing to do that, which most of them are. And one of the biggest things is whenever there's a new president, there's a lot of turnover in staff folks take new opportunities, they move on. It's kind of part of the cycle. So just getting to everyone's staff to have meetings in the earlier months of the year was a challenge as well.
And let's also step back in time for about maybe a couple of months and the DC fly-in, a congressional fly-in, and the Water Resources Summit. You were there in Washington. Give us an update on that. How did that go?
Yeah, so it was a wonderful event. We partnered with the National Groundwater Association, which is kind of an every other year thing for us. And we worked with them to build a really great event. We had presentations from one of our newest DC consultants, Wendy Wilkes, who used to be an EPA regulator under the Biden administration. She was part of some of the biggest infrastructure rollouts. So she did a great presentation on how all of that worked, her experience, answered some questions for members that were present. Very educational, especially ahead of the meetings the following day. We also had a Q&A with DC staffers and some senior offices, which allowed members to ask some questions, but also for them to give good pointers and tips for meetings. You know, if you're going to give them some more information, make sure you follow through, things like that. Overall, the meetings were great. We have a lot of great pictures from members with their legislators, so a lot of one-on-one time.
Yeah, and then we talked about the whirlwind of activity, and of course, tariffs are big news these days. How is WQA trying to track and help members understand the impact of tariffs?
It's a constantly revolving issue. So we're constantly updating. We have a lot of graphics and updates that we are putting every month in our newsletter. So that's where we're putting primarily most of our guidance and updates on that process. Absolutely month to month with different delays in some of the rollouts or, some countries putting in, then taking back reciprocal tariffs. So far, we haven't seen a lot of effect just yet. Some major chains have started to say, they're expecting some slight price increases, but we haven't seen a consolidated change coming in yet.
So if you're listening to this, watching this, and you're not a WQA member, here's an example, of why you need to be a member to be getting these monthly government affairs updates on things like tariffs, the status of the Healthy H2O Act. And maybe we should also pause for a minute here, Paige, and just remind people the Healthy H2O Act is an initiative that WQA has been spearheading for the past several years, trying to get this through Congress in a bill to help underserved rural communities with water filtration. And this would be an opportunity for somebody in one of those areas to receive a grant that would enable them to use for water filtration, water softening, that sort of thing. So it's a very important issue, and one that's very important to the industry, obviously, and can help a great many people. But again, if you're not getting the updates, you're not aware, and we want to make sure that you are. And so, again, membership is the way to do that. And of course, listening to podcasts like this. Let me just back up for a second and ask you mentioned you're thinking of decoupling it from the agriculture bill. So would it exist on its own then, or would it become part of another initiative?
We're still going through a couple of different ideas. It would be a bit more of a standalone bill instead of being wrapped in the Farm Bill. A lot of things get wrapped in the Farm Bill, anything from, SNAP programs all the way through, different incentive bills for farmers. All sorts of things get thrown in there. So taking it out on its own would make it its own message. Maybe the waters are a bit less muddy that way, but primarily it would be to get it moving so it's not tied up with all of the Farm Bill.
Okay. Interesting. Always new tactics to explore, obviously. And when we go back to talking about the fly-in, I'm also curious as to the reaction that you received, you and the others who were on Capitol Hill, again, visiting with staff members or perhaps even the actual member of Congress, him or herself. What did you hear?
Yeah, generally our industry is very well received. Members are either slightly knowledgeable and appreciate the expertise that our members bring, or they're so excited to learn. Water quality in the last few years has been really at the front of everyone's minds, from EPA PFAS regulations and lead service lines to, the different things that have come out of Flint, Michigan. Water has become a bigger and bigger issue for folks, and congressmen are very excited to hear more about how they can help, how they can advance this technology. And overall, it's just a great reception.
Nice part about water, or the nice thing about water, is it's a bipartisan issue. Everybody wants clean water, and everybody wants initiatives that would succeed toward that end. We just have to figure out how to get there. And but DC fly-in, or the congressional fly-in, is an example of a great way to do that. And again, members from WQA are able to have their voice heard in Washington through events such as this. So let's go back to some of the state and local issues you're dealing with. You mentioned Washington State. What can you tell us?
Yeah, so in Washington State in 2020, we had a pre-existing exemption in Washington State for water treatment folks that was removed when the plumbing code was revised. And with that, members in the state now had to have a plumbing license to do business. So we're working closely with Tanya and her team and with a lot of stakeholders in the state to create a specialty license for members. Currently, members are going through the plumbing process, and that can be somewhat burdensome with several months of lag time from the regulatory agency. We're working through some of those challenges with the agency, with the Washington Union, and with several other stakeholders from the 2020 group. That's an ongoing process, and we look forward to working this summer to creating that legislation and that program with the union.
All right, and what else? What other issues are you looking at?
Yeah, so kind of dipping back to the Healthy H2O Act, we have several kind of miniature versions that have been popping up around the country in states trying to do something similar. Virginia was one that I worked closely in early on in this session. And they are doing something similar. It's a little more focused to low-income private wells, not quite as broad as the Healthy H2O Act, but to help folks that have contaminations from lead to PFAS around airports, things like that, to get filtration to those folks. That's, of course, been popping up all over. Different PFAS treatment reimbursements or vouchers. We've commented and written letters to like New York, Massachusetts, like I said, Virginia, and several other states. We saw this last year. Nebraska actually did pass a reverse osmosis credit. So trying to work on some of those initiatives in other states as well. And of course, in Maine, we had what would have effectively been a water softener ban come up this year. And we worked closely with the restaurants and the hospital association up there, as well as with members and with the Department of Environmental Protection up there. They themselves also were in our corner, did not want to ban or have to restrict water softeners. The bill was initially intended for a Energy Star, energy efficiency sort of program. So it didn't make a lot of sense to have water softeners looped into that anyway. So we had members from around Maine. I believe it was about 27 members altogether from Maine and from national water softener manufacturers that signed onto this letter that we sent over to the committee. We ended up being more of a thank you letter because they did change it upon our recommendation and DEP's. But overall, it was a win for the industry.
Fantastic. And maybe we should kind of take it from there and say, what do you see on the horizon? Anything kind of bubbling up that might be taking your attention in the next 6 to 12 months?
So we have some amazing state and regionals that are, looking to do more in their states too, which is really great to be able to take control of the narrative and push legislation that helps our industry. We've seen some states that struggle, kind of like Washington, with industry certification, wanting to take more of that route. We also have been working with folks that are doing more filter first legislation. We've been seeing that as a positive. So more in line with what Michigan did after Flint to really get lead out of schools, and seeing that expand to include PFAS as well. Of course, with the changes going on with the EPA's ruling on PFAS, that's going to be something that we monitor pretty closely and that every state is going to monitor pretty closely. States like Delaware, Maine, and California, of course, have been putting in some PFAS MCL regulations ahead of time that don't go into effect until afterwards, but that will help codify those MCLs in the state level as well. Those are really the biggest things that we're seeing. School water is still very much a hot button topic for everyone. But this year we have seen a really, really high rise in private well water bills, be it similar to the Healthy H2O Act, like I mentioned in Virginia, or testing just to make sure that folks know what's in their well before they buy a house. We helped some members in Nevada with a bill like that. In Nevada, 1 in 4 wells have a pretty high arsenic level. So the members out there wanted to work to make sure when folks bought a home, they knew that they were going to need water treatment, that they knew they had an arsenic level. So those have kind of been the things we've been working on.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Paige, for the update. And for more information about these and other issues, members and others within the industry can go to the government affairs page. So go to WQA.org, O-R-G, and then look up the government affairs page, and then you'll see the updates, and you're able to, again, get more information from a member standpoint with those monthly newsletters and updates. So we want to encourage you to do that. Paige, as always, we appreciate government affairs and the work that you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for the Water Quality Association podcast, bringing you the latest news and insights from the association, our members, and outside experts to help you better serve your customer and grow your business. Learn more about water and water filtration at our consumer website, betterwatertoday.org, and learn more about professional certification, product certification, and how you can become a WQA member at WQA.org. Until next time, this is Wes Bleed. So long from the Water Quality Association.